My sister hit me in the face, then yanked me out by my hair in front of 70 people at her awards party. My mom just smiled. No one stepped in. One phone call later, their carefully built lives were over. Have you ever found yourself staring at your own reflection, completely unrecognizable, realizing that someone you loved just utterly shattered you, while the world outside toasted their perfect, pristine image? That was me moments after my own sister turned an awards gala into her personal boxing ring. The cold, sterile light of the Riverstone Hotel bathroom felt like a spotlight on my brokenness. My lip was split, a coppery taste of blood on my tongue, and my scalp screamed where clumps of hair had been violently ripped out. My dress, a stupidly optimistic white satin that now clung to me in torn, stained tatters, was just another casualty of the night. Every detail under that harsh fluorescent glow was magnified, sharper, impossibly real. And out there, just beyond those double doors, 70 people were still clinking champagne glasses, celebrating Chloe, my older sister, America's sweetheart entrepreneur, the so-called face of women in tech and, apparently, someone who thought punching her little sister in front of her entire network was just part of the show. Most of them just stood there frozen. Except for our mom, who actually smiled. And then, there was the woman who had the audacity to whisper, "I think she deserved it." Let me take you back a little. Honestly, I never even wanted to go. I'd just flown back from a grueling 6-month deployment in Hawaii. All I craved was a single week. One blissful week without military protocol, without a flood of emails, and most importantly, without having to plaster on a fake smile while people treated my uniform and my service like some kind of charity case. But then the invitation arrived. Heavy cream cardstock, elegant gold trim. Chloe, it declared, Woman in Tech Pioneer of the Year. Join us for an exclusive celebration. My name, Harper, was scrawled at the very bottom in ballpoint pen, a clear afterthought. Love, Mom, it read. I almost tossed it straight into the trash. A part of me, though, that foolish, stubbornly loyal, maybe even masochistic part, clung to a desperate hope. Maybe, just maybe, this time they'd actually act like family. So, I packed a small bag, booked a flight to Denver, and hailed an Uber straight to the venue. No time for a quick stop at home. Not that I was particularly eager to, anyway. The Riverstone Ballroom was everything you'd expect from Chloe, completely over the top. Gold chairs gleamed under crystal chandeliers, floral centerpieces were sculpted like wedding arches, and servers in pristine tuxedos glided past with hors d'oeuvres no one could pronounce. I slipped in quietly, hugging the wall. I wasn't looking for a grand entrance or even a red carpet. But I thought, just maybe, someone would notice. Someone would say hello. Mom, of course, was too busy working the room, flashing her politician smile, shaking hands. Dad wasn't there. No surprise, he rarely is. And Chloe? She was exactly where she always was, center stage, holding court, basking in adoration like she'd personally invented the internet. I saw her before she saw me. Her sleek black dress, her flawless makeup, that distinctive laugh she used when she knew all eyes were on her. I waited until the latest round of applause died down, then quietly made my way toward the gift table. I carefully placed my gift amongst the others. It was something I'd actually put thought into. A framed, lovingly restored photo of Chloe and me as kids, from a time before everything in our lives went completely off the rails. Wow, Chloe said from right behind me, her voice dripping with mock surprise. Didn't expect you to show up. I turned. My voice was calm, steady. Didn't expect to be invited. Her practiced smile didn't falter, but her eyes, they were cold. Well, she chirped, Mom insisted. Good PR, you know. The whole family values thing. She picked up the frame, gave it a dismissive glance like it was a grocery receipt, and then set it down without a word. Just try not to make a scene, Harper. We both know you have a history. I actually laughed. Just one sharp, humorless sound. A history of what, Chloe? I challenged. Breathing too loud at dinner? Not clapping hard enough when you won Most Likely to Succeed in 8th grade. Her smile finally cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but it was enough. She took a step closer, her voice dropping. You always had this pathetic, jealous streak. Really? You act like joining the military makes you better than us." My blood ran cold. "I didn't join to be better than you," I shot back, my voice barely a whisper. "I joined to get away from you." And that was it. She snapped. 1 second, she was perfectly composed. The next, her hand shot out, cracking across my face with a force that seemed to suck all the air out of the room. A deafening silence fell. Before the stinging shock could fully register, she grabbed my hair, yanked hard, and started dragging me towards the double doors. I stumbled, caught myself, stumbled again. Her heels clicked like gunshots on the marble floor. And no one, not a single damn person, said a word. I heard gasps. A few nervous, uncomfortable laughs. Maybe one person mumbled, "Chloe, stop." But it was the kind of half-hearted protest people make, just loud enough to salve their conscience later. As we passed the elaborate cake table, our mom actually stepped aside, clearing a path for Chloe to drag me through. She started it, Chloe muttered under her breath, sounding like a petulant 12-year-old. My mom didn't ask what happened. She just smiled and took a slow sip of her wine. Chloe flung me out into the hallway, released my hair, and then smoothed her dress, as if she hadn't just body-slammed her own sister. "I told you not to make a scene," she hissed, before turning on her heel and strutting back inside. I sat there on the cold marble floor for a second, stunned, utterly humiliated. Then, shaky, I pushed myself up and stumbled into the nearest women's room. And that, my friends, is where I found myself. Cold tile, harsh overhead lights, my lip bleeding, my heart not broken, but just done. I splashed water on my face, rinsed my mouth, and pressed a paper towel to my bleeding lip. The woman in the mirror stared back, bruised, battered, but still, in a fundamental way, in uniform. Still trained. Still standing. My hands shaking, I pulled out my phone. For a split second, I considered just deleting the contact. Erasing the memory. But I couldn't. I tapped Liam's name, and just like that, it began to ring. My boots echoed hollowly against the pavement as I walked away from that place. Blood still wet on my lip, strands of hair glued to my face where sweat and tears had mingled. My jaw pulsed, my cheekbone throbbed, but louder than the physical pain was Chloe's voice, sweet and smug and utterly venomous, playing on an endless loop in my head. That party. That ridiculous, goddamn party. It wasn't just another Blake family disaster. It was a declaration. They wanted me gone. Erased. Disposable. I didn't even make it all the way to my car. I ducked behind a hedge near the valet stand and violently threw up, shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone when I finally managed to pull it out again. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the screen. Who the hell was I even supposed to call? Not Mom, not after she left. When Chloe dragged me away. Not my commanding officer. If this blew up, I'd be pulled from my current rotation, and I couldn't risk that. I was barely 2 months out from a crucial reassignment, and damn near shortlisted for a promotion that actually mattered. I couldn't let them take that from me, too. Not after everything. But I also wasn't going to pretend this hadn't happened. Not this time. My thumb hovered over one contact for what felt like an eternity. Liam, First Lieutenant, Legal Support. Camp Pendleton. We'd done joint training overseas and somehow, miraculously, kept in touch. The guy had a spine made of concrete and a moral compass that, against all odds, still worked. More than that, I knew I could trust him with my life. I hit call. He picked up on the second ring, his voice calm and clipped, just like always. Harper. I couldn't answer at first. My throat seized up, and I had to breathe through my nose, fighting back the urge to cry like some wounded kid. I wasn't going to cry. Not now. Not over them. I need help, I finally managed to croak out. Liam didn't ask stupid questions. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just said, "Where are you?" I rattled off the name of the greasy diner across the street. A beat of silence. Then, "I'll be there in 20. While I waited, I slid into the last booth, tucked away in the corner, back to the wall. My hoodie pulled up over my tangled hair. The waitress tried to offer me coffee, but I just shook my head, my gaze fixed on the rain-streaked window. Every time I blinked, I saw that glittering chandelier over the stage, mocking me. The thunderous applause when Chloe got her award. The horrifying, dead silence when she punched me. The worst part, though? It wasn't the physical hit. It was the silent approval. The way everyone paused, looked, and then collectively decided it wasn't their problem. When Liam finally walked in, he didn't make a scene. He just spotted me, gave a single, firm nod, and slid into the booth across from me. His eyes, sharp and assessing, immediately registered the swelling on my jaw, the dark bruising forming under one eye, the unconscious way I kept touching my ribs. And all he said, his voice quiet but steady, was, "What do you need?" That question. Those 4 simple words. They broke something inside me. And I told him everything. How Chloe had been systematically erasing me from the family for years. How, just last month, I'd found out she'd used my deployment status to apply for a special VA loan in my name. How tonight, she'd escalated from fake hugs and manipulative smiles to full-blown physical assault. And how our own mother had cheered her on, like it was some kind of Super Bowl. Liam didn't interrupt once. He just listened, his jaw locked tight, his knuckles white against the edge of the table. When I finally ran out of words, leaving only a raw, ragged silence, he asked, "You have proof?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. I've got a folder back in my apartment. Paperwork. Some emails she accidentally forwarded. She even listed me as a co-founder on her tech startup application, even though I've never touched a single thing in that company." Liam leaned in. "Okay. First, we get that documented. Every single piece. Second, we find someone who knows how to chase money. Someone who can track exactly what she did with your name and where your info ended up." My voice was barely a whisper, thick with resolve. "I don't want this to just go away. No quiet settlement. No public apology. I want her completely out of my life. I want the whole damn thing exposed." Liam didn't miss a beat. "Good," he said, a grim satisfaction in his tone. "Because I know exactly who we're calling next." He tapped his phone, typed something quickly, then looked back at me. "Caleb Sutter. Former IRS investigator, now a financial bloodhound. The guy tracks fraud with the precision of a Marine tracking targets. I worked with him on a JAG case 2 years ago. If she's been laundering anything under your name or screwing around with military financial benefits, he'll find it." End of story. I pressed the ice pack he'd miraculously produced against my throbbing cheek, breathing deep through my nose. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly, his eyes searching mine. "Are you?" I shot back. He gave me that half-smile I remembered from training in Okinawa. "Oh, I'm more than sure. Chloe just started a war with a Marine, and I don't think she read the fine print." Outside, the night had grown still and bitingly cold. Liam opened the truck door for me without a word. I slid in slowly, wincing as the fresh bruises stretched, already blooming under my skin. This, I knew with a chilling certainty, wasn't just about tonight. This was about everything they thought they'd gotten away with. The truck smelled like a mix of pine air freshener and strong black coffee. I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes as the engine's hum settled into a low, almost sedative thrum. Every bump in the road felt sharper than it should. My ribs ached, my scalp still burned, and the adrenaline was finally wearing off, leaving behind a heavy, sickening cocktail of rage and pure exhaustion. Liam didn't say much. He never did when things got serious. That's why I trusted him implicitly. He turned off the highway into a quiet, almost eerily uniform residential area near Aurora. Identical houses, spotless mailboxes, matching garbage bins. I honestly hadn't expected Caleb Sutter, the guy Liam described as being able to trace financial fraud with the precision of a drone strike, to live in a place that looked like a retired dentist's dream, but here we were. Liam parked in front of a beige 2-story house with a stark red door and absolutely zero personality. The porch light flicked on as we stepped out. "He's a little weird," Liam murmured under his breath. "A good weird." The door opened before we even had a chance to knock. Caleb stood there, barefoot, clutching a coffee mug with a chipped handle, wearing a t-shirt that boldly proclaimed, "Death by Audit." He looked like he hadn't slept in days, but also like he'd memorized the entire tax code for fun. "You must be Harper," he said, his eyes unnervingly sharp. "Come in. I've already pulled your records." I froze mid-step. "You what?" He shrugged, unapologetic. "Liam texted me your full name and date of birth 15 minutes ago. I ran a basic scan. You've got 3 military credit accounts open in your name. 2, I'd expect. The third one? That's fishy as hell." I sank onto a kitchen chair as he opened a laptop plastered with duct tape and stickers that read things like, "I know your secrets," and "The IRS is my love language." He started clicking through spreadsheets and bank records with the focused intensity of a surgeon prepping for a delicate operation. "Tell me what you know," Caleb commanded. I laid it all out as cleanly and concisely as I could. How Chloe had asked for some paperwork during my last deployment, claiming Mom needed it for life insurance updates. How, without a second thought, I'd sent a few scanned documents, including my DD-214 and a copy of my ID, assuming it was all perfectly innocent. "And now you've got a ghost credit line," Caleb finished for me, nodding. "Opened through a military-friendly fintech company in Utah, tied to a business startup fund. Guess whose name is on the other end of the transfer?" "Chloe," I said flatly, the name a bitter taste in my mouth. He spun the laptop around to face me. On the screen was a document, my name, my social security number, tied to a $180,000 loan application. Filed 10 months ago. The recipient account? An LLC owned by Chloe, operating as Radiant Arc, her ridiculously named tech company. "She forged your signature," he added, almost as an aside. "Sloppy job, honestly. The digital signature is mismatched, and the timestamps don't align. Amateur hour." I stared at the screen, not even surprised anymore. Not angry, not really. Just a profound, bone-deep coldness. "She's not that dumb," I murmured. "She must have had help." "Oh, she did," Caleb confirmed. "This kind of fraud doesn't fly without an internal enabler." Someone at that funding institution looked the other way. Maybe they were bribed. Maybe blackmailed. Either way, they left footprints. Liam leaned against the fridge, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on Caleb. "So, what's next?" "I keep digging," Caleb replied. "But you, Harper, you need to secure your military records and file a fraud flag with the VA and DoD. Once this is reported, she won't be able to use your credentials for anything else." I nodded slowly, the implications sinking in. "Can she go to jail for this?" Caleb shrugged. "Depends on what you want." "Wire fraud?" "Yes." "Identity theft tied to federal military status?" "Absolutely. The bigger question is, do you want this to be criminal or civil?" I didn't answer immediately. My eyes were still fixed on the laptop screen, on my name, hijacked and weaponized to fund Chloe's fairy tale career. My entire life, she'd found ways to rewrite the narrative. But this time, she'd used the government to do it. "She thinks no one's going to believe me," I said, my voice low and fierce. "She thinks if she spins it right, I'll just look unstable, dramatic, angry, all the things the world expects a younger sister to be." "She's banking on silence," Caleb agreed. "And your military discipline keeping you quiet." "She's betting wrong," I replied, my voice hard as steel. Liam quietly handed me a glass of water. "This isn't just family drama anymore, Harper. This is federal. If you're serious about moving forward, we document everything. You write your statement tonight. And Caleb starts tracking every single dime she touched in your name." I nodded again. The pain in my jaw was a dull throb now manageable. Caleb clicked something on his keyboard. "Welcome," he said, a glint in his eye, "to the part where the quiet sister fights back." I didn't smile. Not yet. But I was already picturing myself in my full dress uniform the next time I saw Chloe's face. I spent the rest of that night at Liam's place, sprawled on the floor in borrowed sweatpants and a hoodie. We were surrounded by open folders and a blizzard of sticky notes, just like I was back in basic training, prepping for a tactical operation. Except this time, the target wasn't overseas. She was my sister. And the mission wasn't combat. It was exposure. Liam had cleared his dining table, transforming it into a makeshift evidence board. He meticulously sorted through printed emails while I painstakingly pieced together every interaction I'd had with Chloe over the last 2 years. Dates. phone calls. Times she'd asked for simple favors. Anything that, in hindsight, felt off. We weren't close, which, ironically, made the list mercifully short. But even a short list in this situation came with an unbearable weight. I held up a printed email from Chloe. Subject: Hey, quick thing. It was dated 11 months ago. I was stationed in Okinawa at the time. She'd asked if I could resend my leave and earnings statement, claiming she needed it to compare something for taxes. I remembered glancing at it for 2 seconds, then forwarding it over mid-mission, without a second thought. That tiny, thoughtless click had just opened a $100,000 door under my name. You weren't just tricked, Liam stated, his eyes scanning the email header. You were operationally targeted. She timed this while you were out of country. Oh, she waited until I couldn't ask questions, I muttered, a cold anger building inside me. She counted on me being too distracted, too obedient to look twice. Caleb FaceTimed in around 1:30 a.m. from his basement, 2 monitors glowing behind him, 3 empty Red Bull cans scattered across his desk. You guys still awake, he said, like he didn't already know. He shared his screen. A spreadsheet popped up, color-coded like a high school science fair project. Only instead of data sets and conclusions, it was my name, meticulously tied to money I'd never touched. He stretched his neck, a loud crack echoing in the quiet room. Here's the real kicker. She didn't just borrow your identity to get the loan. She used it as a security blanket for her investors. She told 2 angel funders she had military backing and showed them your credentials to build credibility. She straight up used your record as marketing. I just blinked. She sold me as part of her brand. Worse, Caleb corrected, she commodified your service. There's a pitch deck in a Google Drive I found through her assistant's email. It's got a slide that says, and I quote, built by women, backed by Marines. Liam looked like he was about to choke. That's not just disgusting. That's stolen valor. I slowly set the folder down and stood up. I needed air. She hadn't just punched me in the face. She'd wrapped herself in my uniform while doing it. Outside, the air was cold and dry. I stood barefoot in Liam's backyard, staring at his old grill, as if it might offer answers. I could hear them still talking inside, low voices, legal terms, financial lingo. It all felt like static, disconnected. There was no playbook for this. No field guide. Just raw instinct. I pictured Chloe's face at the party, polished, practiced, manufactured. And for the very first time, I saw what everyone else saw. Not a sister. A brand. She didn't see me as family. She saw me as a tool. A costume. A useful piece of government-issued legitimacy. And she thought I'd never figure it out. Back inside, I grabbed a notepad and started writing. I listed every piece of documentation we had so far. The forged loan, the false veteran-backed claim, the stolen financial identity, the public assault, the family's silent complicity. I wasn't just a victim of her fraud. I was being erased by her narrative. One version of this story had already been told, her version. Clean, inspiring, successful. But there was another version. Mine. Caleb emailed over a digital folder titled OPF Chloe Stage 1. Inside were 6 documents I needed to submit to begin the civilian and military investigation processes. Whistleblower affidavit, identity protection claims, evidence chain forms, all of it pre-filled and templated. All I had to do was sign and forward. Liam handed me a pen without saying anything. I signed every form like I was marking a target. This doesn't guarantee anything, he warned. It'll take time. It'll be messy. And once this hits the system, Chloe isn't going to play nice anymore. She already didn't, I said, a grim smirk touching my lips. This just makes it official. He nodded, then tossed me a USB drive. That's your backup. Caleb's encrypted it with everything we've got so far. Don't lose it. Got it. Got it, I confirmed. Liam turned off the kitchen light, starting to clean up the scattered paperwork. I sat there in the dark for a while, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft click of the ceiling fan. I wasn't tired, but my body was crashing. I knew what came next wasn't going to be easy. But it didn't have to be easy. It just had to be right. By morning, I had 4 unread emails from Caleb, a dull. ache in my jaw, and exactly 0 hours of sleep. Liam was already up, in uniform, coffee in hand, as if he hadn't just spent the last 10 hours knee-deep in a swamp of identity theft and family betrayal. He handed me a warm mug and nodded towards the laptop on the counter. "She's up early," he said. I opened the link he sent. There it was, Chloe's selfie from her car. Full glam, fake casual, with a caption that oozed false sincerity, grateful for strong women who never let drama slow them down. Eyes on the mission. It already had 2,000 likes. And, of course, a comment from my mom, "Proud of you, baby girl. Keep shining." At that point, I didn't even feel anger. Just cold, hard calculation. "She's trying to get ahead of it," Liam observed. "She's trying to paint you as the storm." "So when it hits," I replied, a bitter edge to my voice, "she can act like she's merely surviving me." Caleb called at 8:22 a.m. sharp. "I've got something you're going to want to see." He shared his screen again. This time, it was a bank ledger. He highlighted 4 transactions over the course of 3 months. Each one labeled Operations Consulting, paid out to a shell company in Delaware, owned by Chloe but directly linked to the startup account tied to my military-backed loan. "She's laundering the money," Caleb explained. "Moving it through fake vendors, then cashing it out personally. It's classic, small-scale fraud. Looks like nothing, but legally, it's devastating." He clicked another tab. A new document appeared, a list of grant applications Chloe had submitted for veteran-owned business incentives. Every single one of them cited her co-founder with military credentials. Me. I leaned back in my chair, the implications growing heavier. So, she wasn't just using my name to get loans. She was getting grants, awards, press coverage, keynote invitations. Caleb confirmed it. "She's booked for the Women in Federal Innovation Conference next month. She's on the flyer with a headline, 'From Deployment to Disruption, How Chloe Blake Built an Empire with Military Discipline.'" My teeth clenched. "She never deployed," I spat out. "She never even visited a base." Liam added, "It's more than exploitation now. It's impersonation, and it's public." She wasn't just hijacking my record. She was performing it for applause. I pulled out a physical file of old photos from my deployments. Me in uniform, me with my unit, training in dusty fields, celebrating holidays in sandstorms. Things I never thought I'd need to prove. Now, they were about to become Exhibit A. "Any word from the VA side?" I asked Caleb. "They flagged your profile last night after you submitted your protection request. You're clean now. No one can pull your military records without clearance." "Good," I said, a grim satisfaction settling in. "Because she's about to try." Liam opened his laptop. "We need a timeline. If she's filed anything under Harper's name that we can backtrack, we create a master record. Prove the fraud pattern." So, we started building it. We printed every digital document, laying them out in chronological order. The email where Chloe asked for my LES, the loan application she filed, the bank transfers to her shell company, the press release quoting her military upbringing, the keynote invite, her LinkedIn post claiming she transitioned from logistics to leadership during service. Every single piece stacked up, forming a picture so clear it was almost boring. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks, because why would she? She never thought anyone would come looking. By noon, Caleb had traced the shell company back to Chloe's personal bank account. "She filed the EIN number using your mom's address," he informed us. "So, even if this blows up, she can claim it was a family mix-up and throw your mom under the bus." "Classic Chloe," I muttered, a cold wave washing over me. "Build the fire and then blame someone else for holding the match." Liam closed his laptop. "So, what's our angle? Go public? Go legal? Both?" "Both," I said, standing up and walking to the counter, pulling out my phone. "But not yet." They looked at me, waiting. I opened my camera roll, scrolling through pictures from my last tour, faces of people I trusted, who'd earned their titles, who'd bled for their patches. I stopped at one, me in dusty camis, squinting under the brutal sun, no makeup, holding a care package with Chloe's handwriting on it. She used to send me snacks and notes, like she actually gave a damn. Now I realized she wasn't supporting me. She was gathering materials for her brand. I looked at Liam. If we're doing this, we're not just making her answer to me. We're making her answer to every vet she lied to. Liam nodded, a steely resolve in his eyes. Caleb raised his coffee mug in a silent toast. To justice. I didn't clink. I didn't smile. But I started packing the evidence folder into a military-grade case I'd brought home from Afghanistan. Because the thing about serving in uniform is this: once you know how to go to war, you don't need permission to do it again. I hadn't even finished zipping up the tactical case when my phone buzzed. A new voicemail. Blocked number. No transcript. I pressed play, already bracing myself. Harper. It's Mom. Her voice, all carefully modulated concern, began. I don't know what this nonsense is you're stirring up. But if you think dragging Chloe into some drama is going to fix your image issues, think again. She's doing real work, and she doesn't need this kind of stress. Whatever you're upset about, just handle it quietly, like adults do. Don't embarrass the family. Not a hello. Not an are you okay? Not even a fleeting mention of Chloe dragging me out of a party by my hair. I deleted the message without responding. She's not stupid, I told Liam, who was across the kitchen, methodically reviewing the growing folder. She's covering herself with polite threats for plausible deniability. She's also panicking, he said, his eyes not leaving the documents. This is the part where they realize they don't control the story anymore. Liam had a dry, understated way of putting things that I truly appreciated. It kept me from spiraling. We spent the rest of the morning consolidating everything Caleb had sent: phone records, social media captures, transaction receipts, and most crucially, Chloe's forged digital signature. Caleb had a contact run a biometric comparison on the electronic application, confirming that the e-signature data didn't match anything tied to my military ID. It was a copy-paste job. They'd even compared the rhythm of the stylus strokes. Cheap, lazy, desperate. She didn't just borrow your identity, Caleb had explained over another late-night FaceTime call. She practically photocopied it and hoped no one would look too closely. It felt surreal how casual it all sounded, like we were planning a home renovation, not dismantling someone's criminal operation built on blood relation and flashy tech conferences. Liam looked up from the stack of documents. We should talk to someone on her team. Someone inside. She won't let anyone talk freely, I countered. She controls people with money and optics. Everyone working for her is either under NDA or neck-deep in her image. Then we find someone who left, he replied, his gaze sharp. Disgruntled, ghosted, fired. The one person who doesn't owe her anything anymore. As it turned out, that wasn't hard at all. A quick search pulled up a podcast episode from 6 months ago featuring Chloe's former head of operations, a woman named Eleanor. She'd lasted 8 months at Radiant Arc before abruptly resigning. No press release, no formal handoff, nothing. She'd simply vanished from Chloe's public narrative as if she'd never existed. But her LinkedIn bio told a different story. Operational lead at Radiant Arkansas exited for ethical reasons. We messaged her anonymously through a burner account. She replied in 20 minutes, meet me in person. I don't talk online about that woman. That woman. I liked her already. We met Eleanor at a neutral cafe halfway between Boulder and Denver. She wore a denim jacket, no makeup, and looked about 10 years older than her actual age, the weariness etched deep. The second she saw me, her eyes widened. You're the sister. Unfortunately, I said, sliding into the booth. We need to talk. She listened, arms crossed, as I meticulously laid out everything we'd uncovered. How Chloe had weaponized my military identity, faked loan applications, manufactured grant materials, and shamelessly sold herself as a veteran-aligned startup founder. Harper, Eleanor interrupted, her voice tight. She used your face in 2 different pitch decks. Did you know that? No, I replied, a fresh wave of disgust washing over me. She called you her combat inspiration in one. Said she started the company while writing letters to you overseas. I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound I couldn't suppress. She barely returned my texts. Eleanor pulled a flash drive from her bag and placed it on the table between us. This has every internal email thread I saved before I left. contracts, edits to press kits. Even an early draft of her conference speech where she claimed your dad was a Navy SEAL. He sold insurance, I muttered, the absurdity almost comical. She told investors the startup was built on discipline, sacrifice, and battlefield insights. Liam interjected, his voice cold. She built it on lies and stolen valor. But now we had someone who'd seen it all from the inside. Eleanor sipped her coffee, her gaze fixed on me. You want to take her down? I didn't flinch. I want her off my name. Then you're going to need more than digital receipts and bruises, she said. You need a witness. On paper. Someone to say, I was there and this is what she did. I nodded, my resolve hardening. Eleanor paused, thinking. I'll sign it, she finally said. But if this gets loud, I'm not running PR. I lost too much time cleaning up her messes already. You won't have to, I promised her, meeting her gaze. This isn't her show anymore. Back at Liam's place, I started scanning Eleanor's flash drive while Caleb remotely monitored traffic to Chloe's startup site. Her numbers were dipping. Interest was down, engagement slowing. The sharks, though still quiet, were circling. She's not going to crash overnight, Caleb warned. People like her know how to pivot. No, I corrected him, a steely glint in my eye. She's not pivoting. She's spiraling. Big difference. I opened one of the pitch decks Eleanor had given us. On slide 7, there it was, a photo of Chloe and me at my basic training graduation. Only, Chloe had photoshopped herself into a uniform, standing right next to me, smiling brightly. She had taken my moment, my work, my sweat, and dressed herself in it like a costume. I saved the image. Game on, I said, a dangerous calm settling over me. The very first thing I did after reviewing Eleanor's files was book a domain name, valor-theft.com. It cost me $9 and gave me a platform to post the unvarnished truth, a truth no PR agency could possibly spin into a branding moment. The site was deliberately basic. Black text, white background, zero design. That was the whole point. I uploaded the crucial documents, Chloe's fake loan application with my military ID, the forged veteran grant pitch, the damning email threads Eleanor had saved, and a side-by-side comparison of my actual deployment history against Chloe's completely fabricated version. At the very top, I added one simple sentence. This is what it looks like when a civilian sister steals from a service member and calls it empowerment. It went live at 7 p.m. By 10:35 p.m., it had 3,000 hits. By midnight, it was trending on a Reddit thread titled, Tech Founder Fakes Military Ties for Clout. And then Chloe responded. Not directly, of course. She posted an Instagram story, a black screen with white text, jealousy is loud, truth is quiet. Underneath, the song Survivor played, subtle as a car crash. Caleb called immediately. She's going into damage control. Liam sat down across from me, arms folded, his expression serious. You still sure you want to go loud? I wasn't quiet when I took an oath, I said, meeting his gaze. I'm not starting now. The next morning, Chloe's attorney sent me a cease and desist letter. It accused me of harassment, defamation, and unauthorized use of proprietary brand content. Liam read it twice, rolled his eyes, and emailed a 3-line response. Happy to comply once your client retracts all false military claims and returns every dollar fraudulently acquired. Until then, buckle up. I wanted to frame it. We expected silence after that. Instead, Chloe dropped her version of the story, an 8-minute YouTube video titled My Truth. It opened with soft piano music. Chloe in a gray turtleneck, hair loose, makeup barely there, but very much there. She looked straight into the camera with watery eyes and said, I've always believed in women supporting women. That includes my sister Harper, who has struggled with adjusting to life after service. It breaks my heart that she's chosen to lash out during a difficult time. I love her deeply, and I hope she gets the help she needs. I almost threw my laptop across the room. She's framing you as unstable, Liam muttered, a grimace on his face. Classic strategy. Shift the focus from what she did to how you're reacting. Even the damn piano music, I said, pacing the room, my voice tight. She's turning a felony into a Lifetime movie. Caleb jumped in. We respond with data, not drama. Let her perform. We post receipts. So we did. We posted them one by one. Scanned originals, timestamped PDFs, the loan data, the grant approvals, the doctored photos. And, just for kicks, a video clip from my promotion ceremony with Chloe sitting in the audience, openly checking her phone, looking bored out of her mind. That one clip alone got 100,000 views in an hour. Then something utterly unexpected happened. Something we hadn't even dared to hope for. Other women, real veterans, started messaging me. Some had worked in tech, some hadn't, but a surprising number had crossed paths with Chloe. One woman, a veteran named Carrera, wrote that Chloe had pitched her an all-female veteran coding boot camp, then ghosted her after stealing her entire curriculum outline. Another said she'd given Chloe access to her veteran-run nonprofit's email list for a collaboration, only to discover Chloe had cold emailed her donors for her own startup. She's been doing this for years, Carrera wrote, the frustration palpable in her message. Everyone thought she was just ambitious. Turns out she's a thief. I asked if they'd go on record. Every single one said yes. So, I created a submission section on the site, titling it, "If She Used You, Speak Up." Within 24 hours, I had 15 testimonies. 2 were anonymous, but one came from a former Army intelligence officer. They all painted the same chilling picture. Chloe wasn't just stealing valor. She was meticulously building an entire brand on the backs of women who had actually served. Liam read the latest one and let out a low whistle. "She's not just toast," he said, shaking his head. "She's a bonfire now." I leaned back in my chair, utterly exhausted, but feeling sharper, more focused than I had in months. "This isn't about me anymore," I declared. "It started with her using my face. But the second she did it to others, she turned it into something much bigger." Caleb heartily agreed. "She didn't just poke the bear, Harper. She walked into an entire den with a selfie stick." The final, sickening touch came from Carrera. She sent a folder titled, "Chloe's Real Resume," which revealed that my sister had systematically padded her background with made-up consulting work for the DoD and a completely fabricated internship at a veterans advocacy firm that never even existed. Liam stared at the screen, a grim realization dawning. "Your sister didn't fake one thing," he said slowly. "She faked an identity." I didn't say anything. I just uploaded it to the site. I booked a hotel room under an alias in downtown Colorado Springs. Nothing fancy. Just clean, quiet, and nowhere near Chloe's orbit. I needed space to operate, free from the worry of being followed, photographed, or worse, ambushed by more concerned family voicemails. I sat on the bed with my laptop, watching the analytics for valor-theft.com tick upward like a second heartbeat. People weren't just reading. They were downloading, sharing, asking questions. Screenshots of my site were popping up all over Twitter. Reddit was alive with timelines and amateur sleuths. One guy even color-coded Chloe's pitch decks and annotated them like a criminal case file. That was when Isla Navarro emailed me. Subject line, "We need to talk." Off the record, at first. I didn't know her personally, but I'd read her work. She was a former war correspondent turned independent investigative journalist. She didn't do fluff. She didn't do favors. Her last piece had exposed a senator's ties to a shady veteran nonprofit and led to an FBI audit. If she was sniffing around this, it meant one thing: Chloe had crossed a line too big for any PR spin to contain. I replied with 3 words, "Let's talk now." 10 minutes later, we were on a secure video call. Isla wore a hoodie, earbuds in, speaking from what looked like a converted garage. Her voice was calm, direct. "I followed Chloe Blake for a while," she said, her eyes piercing. Her narrative just didn't smell right. Too many polished surfaces, too few fingerprints. Your site blew it wide open. I nodded. "She's been using my military service for credibility. And now we know I'm not the only one. I want to write this," Isla stated. "A long-form piece. Documented, verified, fully sourced. Not just a scandal, Harper. A story about what happens when a woman builds power on borrowed trauma." I leaned back, a sense of vindication washing over me. "What do you need?" "Access to your files, interviews with anyone who'll go on record, and your voice." unfiltered. She wasn't asking for pity. She was building a case. "I don't want a revenge piece," I said, looking her squarely in the eye. "I want a reckoning." Isla offered a slight, knowing smile. "That's exactly what I write." I shared everything. The forged documents, the stolen identity, the veterans Chloe had ghosted, the internal emails Eleanor had saved. I gave Isla full, unwavering permission to use my name, my face, my record. If she wanted to wear my service like armor, I told her, she's going to feel the full, crushing weight of it. The article dropped 3 days later. The headline screamed, "The sister she erased, inside Chloe Blake's stolen valor empire." It was brutal, meticulous, and utterly impossible to ignore. Isla didn't just tell my story, she told ours. She wove in other veterans' experiences, damning emails, grant records, screenshots of Chloe's doctored resume, and expert commentary from a JAG attorney who flatly stated, "This is a prosecutable offense." Full stop. The piece went viral within hours. Chloe's publicist released a half-hearted, "We are reviewing the allegation" statement, but it was far too late. The tech conference immediately dropped her keynote. One of her angel investors issued a refund demand. A LinkedIn post from a former intern went viral. I asked why she had military dog tags in her office. She said marketing. I quit the next day. For the first time in her meticulously curated life, Chloe shut up. No more soft piano music. No more gray sweaters. No more "my truth" speeches. She was bleeding digital credibility by the minute. Caleb, meanwhile, forwarded me a new file. It detailed a massive withdrawal from Chloe's business account, close to $60,000 wired offshore to an account in the Cayman Islands. "She's moving money," he observed. "She thinks this is going to court." Liam read it, a dark humor in his eyes. "Which means she's guilty and arrogant." That's the worst combination. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Liam didn't sugarcoat it. "She's going to try and play the victim harder than ever. Expect an op-ed, maybe a podcast interview. She'll probably throw you under the bus again. She has no shame. Remember that." "I'm not scared of shame," I said, a cold fire in my gut. "I'm just tired of carrying hers." That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, Chloe standing outside a courthouse with my mom. The caption, "Family first. Even when they tried to destroy you." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent the image to Isla. She added it as an update to her article with a single, devastating sentence. No comment was offered by Chloe Blake or her mother. By morning, the photo had become a meme. That's the thing about control. When you build your entire life by staging every single moment, the truth doesn't just crack it open. It shatters the whole stage. Chloe wasn't being attacked. She was finally being seen. And I was finally being heard on my own damn terms. I could hear the fire alarms going off in Chloe's camp from a mile away, and I wasn't even watching the news. It was all happening online, in real time, through comment threads, blog reposts, and screen-recorded TikToks of her now infamous "My Truth" video being torn apart line by military spouses and actual veterans. What had started as a controlled narrative had completely unraveled into a full-on exposure campaign. And then Isla called. "I just got a message from one of Chloe's early investors," she said, her voice sharper than usual. "He wants to talk privately. Off the record for now." The investor's name was Arthur. A low-profile but wealthy tech backer known for gambling on startups that looked socially progressive and female-forward. Chloe had been a trophy founder for him, clean image, perfect teeth, a storybook background. And now an unraveling mess. He wouldn't meet in public, so I flew out to a neutral space in Santa Fe with Isla. We sat in a corner booth of a half-empty tapas bar. Arthur, clad in a tan turtleneck, his teeth almost too white, sipped mineral water and scanned the room like he was expecting spies. "I don't want my name in your article," he said immediately, his voice low. "I just want you to understand that we were sold a story." "Arthur," Isla replied flatly, her patience thin. "No one forced you to believe it." He winced. "Look, she brought paperwork. Photos. A whole slideshow about her sister, how you inspired the company's culture, how your discipline as a Marine shaped her approach to leadership. I just stared at him. Did you ever talk to me? Of course not, he said, as if that was irrelevant. We don't vet families. We fund founders. And when did you start suspecting something was off? Isla pressed. Arthur hesitated. After the second round of investment. She got sloppy. She claimed to have spoken at a DoD Innovation Summit. One of our partners used to work in defense. He couldn't find a single record of it. So why stay quiet? I asked, my voice barely controlled. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. We thought she'd clean it up. You have to understand, she was still a good investment. Until now, I said, not blinking. You helped her build this. I didn't know, he insisted. You didn't ask to know, I countered, his silence a stark admission. Before he left, he slid a small folder across the table. These are internal investor updates. She sent financials, board letters, claims about government partnerships. A lot of it probably falls under wire fraud if you can prove she knowingly lied. We can, I said, my conviction firm. Back in the hotel, Isla and I spread the documents across the floor. The more we read, the worse it got. Chloe had inflated user metrics, cited fake veteran advisors, and even claimed to have pending contracts with the Department of Homeland Security. All lies. All traceable. Isla pulled out her recorder again. She really thought you were going to stay quiet forever, huh? She forgot I was trained to handle conflict, I said, a wry smile touching my lips. She mistook restraint for weakness. The next move came from Chloe's legal team. Predictable, arrogant, and utterly doomed. They filed a restraining order against me, citing emotional distress and online harassment. The problem was, they did it in the same Colorado district where Caleb had already filed my identity fraud case. That meant court records became public. And suddenly, every media outlet had access to the full, unvarnished story. Isla didn't even have to push it anymore. Major news channels picked it up. Marine exposes sister's fraudulent tech empire. It was the kind of headline you couldn't make up. Chloe's face was on the news, but not the way she wanted. I watched a clip of her ducking cameras outside her office, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, gripping our mom's arm like a terrified child. My mom, who once laughed while Chloe humiliated me in front of a crowd, now looked like she'd aged 10 years in a week. Caleb called later that night. She's cooked, he said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. IRS is sniffing. One of her shell companies flagged in an audit this week. If she doesn't settle, they'll press charges. It's not just your name anymore. It's a dozen others. She built a business on military status, and now that status is a liability. What about the restraining order? I asked. Dismissed, he said. Didn't even make it past the first judge. Chloe's lawyer bailed mid-hearing. Liam emailed me a screen grab of the court's ruling. The header read, case closed. Fraudulent claims dismissed. And yet, none of that hit me like the next email did. It was from a girl named Brianna, a sophomore in ROTC at a community college in Arkansas. She wrote, I saw your story. My sisters always made fun of me for wanting to serve. Said it's a waste of time. But after watching how you fought back, I finally applied for officer candidate school. Thank you for showing me how to own my path, even when your family doesn't understand it. I read it twice. Then again. Chloe had spent years building a version of my life she could wear like a brand. She took my discipline, my image, my name, and bent them into something fake. But the real thing, the real story, it spoke louder than anything she ever fabricated. And it couldn't be buried anymore. The morning Chloe walked into the mediation room, she looked like she still believed she was the protagonist in her own perfect narrative. Tailored blazer, soft curls, lips pursed as if she'd just stepped off a magazine shoot. If the pressure had cracked her, she'd patched every leak with designer concealer. Her attorney, a new one, this time, sat beside her, flipping through a binder as if this were just another Tuesday. Liam was on my left, a quiet, lethal presence. Across the table sat the court mediator, trying her best to pretend she wasn't sitting in a live grenade of family dysfunction. They opened with pleasantries. I didn't bother responding. Chloe finally looked at me, a manufactured sadness in her eyes. Harper, she said, as if we were sipping wine at a casual brunch, I hope we can resolve this with civility. Liam leaned forward, his voice cutting through the facade. Then let's start with accountability. Here. The mediator asked us both to state our positions. Chloe launched into a well-rehearsed speech about how the situation had spiraled and been misunderstood, how internal miscommunications with junior staff may have led to overstated associations with military institutions. I didn't say a word. Liam slid a document across the table. This is the grant form where your client falsely listed Harper Blake as a company co-founder with military credentials. We also have voice memos of her describing Harper's deployments to potential investors as if they were her own. Chloe waved a dismissive hand, as if swatting a bothersome mosquito. That was a narrative device. It was identity theft, I stated flatly, my voice unwavering. She looked at me then, her eyes narrowing, as if I'd just betrayed some sacred, unspoken sister code. The mediator, clearly overwhelmed, tried to regain control. Let's keep the conversation productive, Ms. Blake, she said, turning to Chloe. Are you willing to acknowledge any factual inaccuracies in your business filings? I'm willing to acknowledge that my team handled certain details aggressively, Chloe replied, her pre-rehearsed line, as if aggressively meant marketing vitamins too hard, not committing fraud. Liam passed her another document. This is a deposition from Eleanor, your former COO. She directly stated that you requested she alter Harper's military records for pitch decks. That's not aggressive. That's criminal. Chloe's eyes snapped to me venomous. Eleanor was let go for performance issues. She resigned, I corrected, after refusing to fake your image one more time. For a moment, Chloe just stared at me, the mask cracking fully. You always made everything about yourself, she said quietly, her voice laced with bitter accusation. You're impersonating me, and you're obsessed with me, she snapped, her composure finally shattering. That's what this is. You've always been second best, and now you're using your uniform to rewrite the script. You want people to think you're a hero. Newsflash, Harper's service doesn't make you interesting. It makes you tired. The room went absolutely still. Liam subtly pressed a small button hidden under the table. It was a recorder, legally approved for use since the mediation was part of the legal proceedings. Chloe had just admitted, on the record, that she saw my military service as nothing more than a marketing inconvenience. The mediator looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Chloe, finally realizing the gravity of what she'd said, tried to backpedal frantically. I didn't mean you said exactly what you meant, I interrupted, my voice clear and firm. Liam folded his hands, his expression resolute. This recording, combined with the grant documents and Eleanor's testimony, gives us more than enough to proceed with formal criminal charges. But if your client wants to settle, this is her last chance. Chloe's lawyer looked ready to bolt. She hissed something at him under her breath, then glared at me. You really think ruining me fixes you? No, I said, my gaze steady. But it stops you from doing this to anyone else. That was what she never understood. This wasn't about ego. It was about truth. I'd watched her fabricate a version of me the world applauded, strong but non-threatening, veteran but Instagram-friendly, obedient and useful. The minute I told my actual story, flawed, blunt, unapologetic, she panicked because it exposed her carefully curated fiction for what it truly was, a costume built from my scars. We left the mediation with a signed agreement, proceed to civil trial unless settlement terms were reached within 5 business days. Liam called it the legal version of a slow countdown. Chloe's brand was imploding by the hour, and the clock was now public. Outside the courthouse, a small group of local reporters waited. One asked if I wanted to make a statement. I didn't say much. Just one sentence. I don't speak for all service women, but I won't let someone fake our story ever again. It aired that night. It wasn't flashy, but it hit hard. Truth always does. Chloe didn't respond publicly, but her lawyer sent over a settlement draft 2 days later. It wasn't enough. An insulting offer, just under $1.2 million, a non-disclosure agreement, and a vague admission of misuse of branding. They wanted to sweep it all under the rug, call it a misunderstanding. But I wasn't cleaning up after her anymore. Instead, I called Liam and said 2 words, "We go." So we filed. The civil suit dropped online the next day, and thanks to Isla's ongoing coverage, it spread fast. I didn't even need to do a press tour. People were already quoting excerpts from the court filing like it was a Netflix doc script. Chloe's attorney tried one last desperate push, claiming I was maliciously exaggerating the scope of the damage. But screenshots don't lie. Neither do bank statements. And then it happened. Late that night, one of Chloe's old investors released a statement publicly distancing his firm from any individual who falsified military associations to obtain financial gain. His name wasn't even in our suit. He just didn't want to be caught in the fallout. From there, the dominoes fell fast. The Women in Federal Innovation Conference officially removed Chloe's name from their website. Her own company, Radiant Arc, locked their LinkedIn page. The co-founder she'd brought on for optics scrubbed her name from his resume. She wasn't just being canceled. She was being erased, piece by painful piece, like someone meticulously cleaning graffiti off a memorial wall. The same day, Chloe's glossy headshot disappeared from the advisory board of a military support nonprofit she'd donated to for years. Their new homepage banner read, "We honor authentic service, always." And yet, even after all that, the part that hit me hardest came in the form of an email from my mom. Subject line, "Can we please move on?" No greeting. No name. Just this, "Harper, I know things have gotten out of hand, but I'm asking you, please, don't destroy your sister. We're family. Mistakes were made, yes, but she was just trying to build something. She didn't mean to hurt you, and airing everything like this, it's embarrassing. Please think about the bigger picture." Mom. I stared at the screen, as if it might catch fire. Not a single mention of what Chloe did. No apology. No ownership. Just another desperate plea to keep everything pretty from the outside. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and typed in Isla's article again. I read every paragraph, scrolled through the comments. That's where I saw it. Someone had posted a clip Chloe had filmed years ago, back when she first started speaking on panels. It was a Q&A session. A woman in the audience had asked, "Where did your leadership style come from?" Chloe had smiled wide, her eyes sparkling, and said, "My sister." She served in the military, and watching her transform into this strong, decisive woman made me believe I could lead, too. She's a warrior. I just borrowed her backbone. I played it again. I just borrowed her backbone. That wasn't admiration. That was theft, wrapped in a saccharine compliment. I remembered being 22, fresh out of boot camp, FaceTiming Chloe while sitting on a cot with sand in my boots and sunburn on my neck. I told her how tired I was, how hard it was to be taken seriously. She told me, "Just keep your mouth shut and do what they expect." That's what people respect. And now here she was, spouting words like inspiration and empowerment, as if she hadn't once laughed when I cried during my first deployment. Borrowed my backbone. She hollowed out my story and wore it as a costume until it no longer fit. And now that I was telling it myself, the world was finally realizing just how artificial her version had always been. I forwarded my mom's email to Liam and typed one line beneath it, "No response, but I'm keeping this for trial." He replied with a thumbs up and a single sentence, "Smart." Juries love a good guilt trip from a complicit parent. That weekend, Caleb sent me a spreadsheet. It painted a brutal picture, Chloe's company's public revenue loss over the last 30 days. 92% of contracts canceled. Website traffic down 85%. Social engagement flatlined. "This is what empire collapse looks like," he wrote. No explosions. Just a quiet, permanent disappearance. I closed my laptop. Then I reached for my phone and called Carrera, the ROTC girl who'd messaged me weeks earlier. We talked for almost an hour. She asked me what it was like, truly, to stand up to your own family. I told her the truth. It's lonely, I admitted. But being used is lonelier. I stood outside the courthouse with Liam and Caleb, watching Chloe's legal team scramble in slow motion. They carried 3 briefcases and wore that specific brand of fake confidence you only see in people who know they're about to lose, but still have to put on a show. Chloe wasn't with them. She wasn't required to appear today, but I was, and I wanted to be there. The civil trial wasn't publicized with the same online fanfare as her crash had been, but the courtroom was packed anyway. Veterans. Students. 2 tech journalists I recognized. Even Eleanor sat quietly in the back row, pen in hand, a notebook open. Isla sat beside her, not covering this for a new article, but present as a witness to the profound ripple effect. The judge was a middle-aged woman with a subtle military pin on her robe. The irony was not lost on me. She didn't smile, didn't nod, just read out the docket like it was a grocery list, then said flatly, "Let's get to it." Our side began with Liam meticulously presenting the forged documents, the damning screenshots, the financial discrepancies, and Chloe's own direct statements from mediation. The judge listened with the kind of face you'd expect from someone who'd seen 3 decades of excuses. She asked pointed questions. She took meticulous notes. When Eleanor took the stand, she didn't cry. She didn't posture. She simply laid out everything Chloe had asked of her. Every moment she'd been ordered to manipulate my service record. Every time Chloe had used my military rank to pitch a story of sacrifice for investors. Every internal memo that had made her stomach turn. She wasn't inspired by her sister, Eleanor said, her voice clear and strong. She was profiting off her. Chloe's lawyer tried to poke holes, suggesting Eleanor was a disgruntled ex-employee. Eleanor didn't flinch. "I left because I have a conscience," she stated. She stayed because she doesn't. Next came Carrera, the ROTC student. Her statement wasn't legally necessary, but we'd petitioned to include it as a character reference. She told the court how Chloe's polished story made her feel like a fraud for not being public-facing enough. How it fed the insidious idea that women in uniform had to be polished, photogenic, and startup-adjacent to be taken seriously. "Harper reminded me that the uniform speaks for itself," Carrera said, her voice resonating with conviction. "And no one gets to put it on metaphorically while someone else earns it the hard way." Chloe's attorney objected. The judge overruled. Then came me. I didn't read from a script. I stood up, took a deep breath, and just told the truth. I told them about the night at the awards party. The punch, the hair, the deafening silence that followed. I told them about Chloe using my name for federal benefits, about the debt notices I hadn't even seen until Liam pulled them from my credit report. I described what it felt like to watch my entire life become a costume someone else wore better. "I didn't come here for revenge," I declared, my voice echoing in the quiet room. "I came here for accountability." Chloe Blake used my identity as a prop. She sold my service like it was merchandise. And when I finally said no, she called me unstable. I could feel the room tighten, a collective intake of breath. "I'm not unstable," I said, my gaze sweeping across the faces in the jury box. "I'm just not quiet anymore." The judge called for a short recess. When we returned, Chloe's side had little to present. They couldn't. They had no paper trail to dispute the facts, and Chloe had already buried herself on record. Her attorney mumbled something about miscommunication and overstated narratives. The judge didn't even blink. Before closing arguments, the judge looked directly at me, her eyes filled with an unspoken respect. "You wear your uniform with more integrity than some wear their entire lives," she said, her voice firm. "Thank you for reminding this courtroom and your country what service actually means." Then came the ruling. Chloe Blake was found liable for civil identity theft, defamation, and misappropriation of military likeness for financial gain. Damages awarded, $280,000. Not a fortune, but enough to make every future investor think twice. Chloe didn't show her face after that. Not in the hallway. Not in the parking lot. Not online. Her company officially went dark 2 weeks later. The website died. The Instagram disappeared. LinkedIn showed no results found, and a sad, hollow 404. Caleb sent me a link to the archive page with a single, poignant subject line: "Ghosted." I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled. That night, I sat alone at a diner 2 blocks from the courthouse. Coffee cooling in front of me, jacket draped over the booth, dress shoes kicked off under the table. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was something close. A woman approached, maybe mid-30s, wearing a navy sweatshirt and a cautious smile. "Are you the sister, the Marine?" she asked softly. I nodded. She gave a half shrug. "Thank you for speaking up. For all of us." She didn't linger. Didn't ask for a photo. Just left a $10 bill beside my coffee and walked away. I didn't even catch her name. Didn't need to. That's what justice looks like sometimes. Quiet. Ordinary. No medals. No speeches. Just someone walking away lighter because you finally told the truth. The first thing I did when I got back to base was change out of civilian clothes and walk the perimeter of the armory at dawn. No earbuds. No distractions. Just the crunch of gravel under my boots, the rising sun behind me, and the grounding scent of something real. Dirt, sweat, discipline. I wasn't there for ceremony. I was there because this was the one place where nobody needed a backstory to respect you. You earned your name here, daily. Command had cleared me for full reinstatement. Turns out, fighting a civil lawsuit against a sister impersonating you doesn't disqualify you from serving, especially when you win. My CO called me into his office, shut the door, and said, "Blake, most people leave their family drama at home. You managed to put yours in a courtroom and still keep your record spotless. Not easy, but you handled it like a Marine." I didn't smile. I just said, "Thank you, sir." He nodded. "The recruiting office could use someone like you." I raised an eyebrow. "You want me to push pamphlets?" "Not exactly," he said, a small smile playing on his lips. "I want you to talk. Young women walk into that office every day, not knowing whether they belong. I want you to show them what it looks like when someone walks in with nothing and walks out with purpose." It didn't feel like a demotion. It felt like a mission. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of a class of ROTC juniors at a community college near Fort Carson. No PowerPoint. No flag waving. Just me in uniform, arms crossed, telling them what Chloe never understood. You don't need to be the face of something to be the heart of it. I had someone take my service and repackage it into TED Talks and pitch decks. She made money off it. She got applause. But she never got what really mattered. "What's that?" one of the girls asked, her eyes wide. I looked straight at her. Respect. From people who actually know what it costs to earn it. They didn't clap. They didn't cry. But nobody looked away. That was enough. Later, Liam sent me a text. "VA just flagged Chloe's name in a fraud watch list. She's officially radioactive. IRS is circling, too. Looks like she's going to be busy with lawyers for the next few years." I replied, "She wanted my status. Now she can have my consequences." I didn't check for a response. I didn't need one. Eleanor emailed me a job offer, some kind of advisory position for a new nonprofit supporting female vets transitioning to civilian careers. She said, "We could use someone who knows what stolen valor actually looks like up close." I told her I'd think about it. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I finally had the luxury of choosing. Chloe never did show her face again. She ghosted the world as fast as she tried to conquer it. Her name stopped trending. Her supporters got quieter. Some pretended they never knew her. Even Mom faded into radio silence, probably hoping I'd forget the part where she called my truth embarrassing. I didn't. But I didn't chase her either. Instead, I sat down and wrote something else. My own speech. Not a TED Talk. Not a press conference. Just a short story I sent into a small podcast that highlights real women in service. They read it aloud with no music, no edits. Just my words in my voice, saying, "I used to think my sister stole something from me. My image, my story, my value." But she didn't. She only delayed it. She built a career off the illusion of strength while I was out earning the real thing. And the people who matter? They know the difference. It got shared more times than anything Chloe ever posted. Not because it was flashy. Because it was real. One night, I walked into the mess hall and saw one of the younger recruits scrolling through her phone. She looked up and said, "Sergeant Blake, that podcast, that was you, wasn't it?" I just nodded. She nodded back, a silent understanding passing between us. It made me call my dad, told him I was done pretending I had to prove anything to anyone. He cried. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just patted his shoulder and moved on. That's what healing looks like sometimes. Not closure. Just clarity. Chloe had built an empire of mirrors. One crack, and it all fell. I walked away with scars, yes, but also with roots. I wasn't just reclaiming my story. I was rewriting what it meant. And this time, it was mine, from start to finish. I never imagined I'd end up working at a recruiting station. When I first walked into one as a teenager, I was angry, broke, and looking for a way out of town. Now, over a decade later, I'm the one behind the desk. And kids walk in with the same look in their eyes that I used to have. Part fear, part hope, and not a clue who they'll be once the uniform is on. But this time, I meet them with more than pamphlets. I meet them with honesty. Not the kind Chloe faked, clean, packaged, Instagrammable resilience. I tell them the truth. That service is messy, hard, and often thankless. That it'll break you down before it builds you up. And that if you're lucky, you come out of it with something no amount of likes or TED Talks can give you, character that doesn't need an audience. One morning, I gave a talk at a local high school. Nothing fancy, just a gym full of restless juniors. I told them about what it meant to earn your place in a world that keeps asking you to prove it twice, especially if you're a woman. Especially if you're quiet. Especially if your family's idea of support looks a lot more like sabotage. I didn't mention Chloe by name. I didn't have to. Afterward, a girl came up to me, maybe 17, and said, "My sister always tells me I'm not built for stuff like this. But after hearing you, I kind of want to prove her wrong." I smiled and told her, "Good. But don't do it for her. Do it for you." Later that week, Isla forwarded me a message from a film producer asking if I'd be interested in optioning my story. I just laughed and deleted it. I wasn't interested in turning my life into content. That was Chloe's game. Mine was quieter now. More solid. I didn't need an arc. I had a life. Liam still calls every now and then. Usually, it's just a vent about some overconfident cadet or sending me screenshots of motivational Navy Twitter posts with sarcastic captions like, "Does this count as emotional fraud?" Caleb checks in to send me a bottle of good bourbon and a card that said, "For surviving the most sophisticated scam I've ever traced and not murdering anyone in the process." And Eleanor? She ended up launching her own nonprofit, just like she said she would. This time, it's real. No brand fluff. No stolen valor. No photo shoots. She brought me on as a board advisor. At our first meeting, she introduced me as the reason this place has a moral compass. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and thought, good. Let's keep it that way. One night, I sat on my porch and pulled out the old family photo album. Not the digital kind. Real paper. Sticky pages. Faded ink. I found a picture of me and Chloe when we were kids. Halloween costumes, me in a pirate hat, her in a princess dress, already striking a perfect pose for an imaginary camera. Even back then, we were telling different stories. I didn't hate her. I didn't want her ruined. I just wanted my life back. And I got it. But more than that, I got to take something she never expected, her ending. She thought she'd write both our narratives, that I'd be the cautionary tale in her origin story, the poor, plain sister who got lost in combat while she rose in boardrooms. But that's the problem with people who steal stories. They forget that truth doesn't need to be loud to last. My truth outlived hers. It didn't trend. It didn't sell books. But it found its place in courtrooms, classrooms, inboxes, and conversations whispered between sisters who needed to hear that strength doesn't come from who claps the loudest. It comes from who shows up anyway. Chloe's name hasn't been spoken publicly in months. She lives somewhere in Arizona now, according to Caleb. Probably under a new LLC with another sanitized brand identity and a fresh round of fake tears. She'll find another crowd, another platform, another costume. People like her always do. But she'll never wear mine again. That door is closed. And locked. And reinforced with everything I've earned since. The funny thing is, Chloe spent years trying to be me. Now, I don't think she even remembers who she really is. But I do. I remember who I am. I'm Sergeant Harper Blake, U.S. Marine. Daughter of no one's fantasy. Sister to no one's illusion. And I am the author of my own damn story. Sometimes, The people who hurt you the most are the ones who taught you how to fight. Not with fists. Not with noise. But with clarity. With discipline. With truth. My sister thought she broke me when she dragged me out by my hair in front of 70 people. What she really did was rip off the mask for both of us. Hers shattered. Mine never even existed. And in the silence that followed, I stood up. Not as the victim. Not even as the hero. Just as someone who finally stopped apologizing for surviving a family that only clapped when she stayed small. This journey was long and, frankly, exhausting. But looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. If you've ever had to fight for your truth, or stand up to someone who tried to steal your identity, metaphorical or otherwise, I want to hear about it. What would you do if your own family turned on you like this? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for listening. Take care.